Hi, welcome to all. My name is Sander Schimmelpenninck. I'm a Dutch journalist. I'm sitting here in the Swedish ambassador's residence in The Hague. It's a beautiful room. And I was muted for a second there. I hope you can all hear me now. We're gonna have a
Great
chat
start, Sander.
tonight with. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Good. We're going to have a chat tonight with Alex Schulman. He's the writer of The Survivors, a novel that is now hitting the charge in Holland. I already met him once. I will introduce him later to you all, to all the viewers. But first, we go to Annika Markovic. She is the Swedish ambassador here in the Netherlands and currently at Schiphol Airport. I think in some sort of a smoking area. I'll pass the word on to you for a quick moment. Annika.
Thank you very much. And dear book lovers, I really welcome you all to this online writers evening, which is the first one for us at the embassy in The Hague. And I would have loved to receive you all in my beautiful residence in The Hague, and especially you, Alex Schulman. But at the same time, I'm really happy that we can meet like this, thanks to the technique. So I've been the Swedish ambassador in the Netherlands for 3 years, and I'm really happy to see how immensely popular Swedish literature and detective series are in this country. So when introducing myself to a new Dutch acquaintance, I regularly get to hear what he or she thought about the latest Mankel or Beck book, or which Nordic noir series they are binging on Netflix at the moment. So I'm wondering, where does the Dutch fascination of Swedish literature come from? Could it be the Dutch love for nature, woods, and long dark winter nights? Or the fact that our cultures are actually quite alike? It's easy to recognize yourself in the stories, or simply that Swedish books tell great stories that appeal to many. So this is one of the things that we will explore tonight, next to the new book by Alex, of course. I finished reading it during the weekend. And for those of you who haven't read it yet, there is an interesting dark secret at the end of the story. So with these few words of introduction, I'm really happy to have you all here with us tonight. And even though we can't meet in person, I hope that we will feel that we are close. So thank you very much, and over to you again.
Thank you, Annika. Alex Schulman, he's a very famous guy in Sweden, but here in Holland, of course, very few people know who you are. Alex, can you quickly describe yourself? What do you do in Sweden? What is your media profile, as you call it in Sweden?
Well, well, to explain in the easiest way, I think that I am the Swedish equivalent of you. Maybe not as serious as you are, because I know that you are a bit more serious journalist than me. But I think that we both have a podcast, and I think yours is very big in the Netherlands, the biggest one in the country, right? And I don't want to brag, but I also have a very big one here in Sweden. And
well, you inspired me to do it.
Yeah, I heard that, because I will never forget it when this man approached me on my favorite place to go to eat in Stockholm. A fan, I thought, wanting an autograph or something, but then he said, "You're my podfather." And then and it was you, Sander, and you explained that you started to podcast because of your girlfriend, right? Because she's Swedish, and we had a great but short talk, and then I started to follow you on Instagram, and I saw that you spent some time in Sweden. I was sad to see that you spent it on the wrong side of the country. You're mostly in the you're mostly in the West Coast, and
Västkusten eller västkusten.
and I get so sad every time I see it, because and I just wish that you could be here. I can show you if you want to. This is the island of Gotland, it's the island of Ingmar Bergman, of course, the Swedish director. He's buried just a few kilometers that way, and I live here in it's a barn. I can show it to you. It's like a barn that we have decorated. We have done inside there. There was cows and horses and things like that 50 years ago, and then we bought it, and then we rebuilt it. And down here it's the sauna. Can you see it?
Yeah, of course. Crucial in Sweden.
Yes. So every day we go down here and we take a sauna, and then we meet up here at the Uteplatz, and we have a drink. And that's what I'm going to do tonight after this conversation as well. With my wife. Here's Amanda, my wife. You know my wife also.
Amanda, yeah, I met her as well in Stockholm. Hey, yes. Amanda. So now, Alex, now we know that you've been quite successful in whatever you've been doing for the last years, but I still want to know, for my Dutch viewers, what have you been doing? I mean, you're a writer, that's obvious because we're discussing your book. You're a podcaster, but how did you start writing?
I started to write when I was 11 years old. I mean, with a dream of being an author. And I wrote my first book when I was 16 or 17, and I tried to get it published, and I was turned down by every publisher in Sweden. And then I carried on trying to write books, but no one was really interested. And I also tried to be a journalist with not so much success either. But then the thing happened when the web turned social, and these blogs were started, and I realized if no one wants to publish me, I can publish myself. And that was like a big thing for me because then I could just write something and I could publish it without permission from someone else. So I started. I was one of the first bloggers in Sweden, and that blog became very big. It became the biggest blog in Sweden. This is the year 2009 or something. And in that blog, I sometimes wrote short texts about my father, who had recently died. And I mean, there was memories of him. And then when this blog was so big, then the publisher started to call me, and I could finally, after trying for 15 years or so, publish my first book. And that was an autobiography. How do you say it, Sander?
Autobiography, yeah.
Yeah. And after that, I've been published maybe one new book of that kind every year. And I've been exploring the stories of my family. I have one book about my mother, one about my father, and I have also one book about my grandmother and my grandfather. And it sounds boring, but there are stories to tell, I think.
No, it doesn't sound boring. It sounds it sounds like you need to have a lot of confidence, first of all, to start writing at such a young age, and knowing you want to write, and then deciding to start your own blog. I mean, where did you get the confidence from? Because a lot of young writers, they try to get published and then they're turned down, and then they just give up. You always seem to believe in yourself.
Maybe that is because I was very early with the inside of that if there's going to be anything of me, it's going to be in that field, because I had no other talent, but I could feel that I could tell a story. And I practiced on that. So I practiced on that so much, and I read so many books. And every day I was just thinking about how can you tell a story in the best way. So it was like if I would have failed with that, I didn't know what to do. So that was my only option in a way, if you know what I mean.
I understand, of course. Before we're going to talk about the actual book, The Survivors, The Survivors is your first novel. It's not just your first novel, it's also your first international launch. It's now in the top 3 in Holland. It's going really well. Is that something you expected?
No, because the dream, being young, I mean, it of course it was to be published not only in Sweden but in the whole world. But then I mean, I could never think that I could do something like what happened this last year, when I had this agent that had these calls with other agents in other countries, and then knowing that I think it's 35 countries bought the book. It's I mean, it's incredible, and I could never think of it. And then also to have, to know that in the Netherlands, for example, that the book is going really well there, I think, and they have printed it for the fourth time, and it's on the best seller list and everything. It makes me, it's just crazy. I can't believe it.
It's super cool, and what I find interesting is that, of course, you're very well known in Sweden. Swedish people know who you are. They have a very clear image of who Alex Schulman is. Here in Holland, nobody knows you. If I were in your position, I would also see that as something fun, that you can start all over when it comes to how people look at you. How do you would like Dutch people to look at you? What kind of writer are you? Because I'm saying this because I read some interviews with you where you said, like, yeah, I wasted so much time in Sweden writing about stupid stuff and all this gossipy stuff. I shouldn't be doing that. And it sounded almost like people have an image of you in Sweden with that in their in the back of their head, and maybe have some sort of prejudice about who you are and what you write about. So having said that, I can see it also as a chance to have a new life abroad.
Yeah, no, I am really sick of it. But I mean, I have myself to blame. But I'm in Sweden. I'm still seen as a quite controversial person, and that is because of the blog, I think, and because of the fact that I worked on a gossip magazine called Se och Hör in the early 2001, 2002, and there was an image of me being very mean and very, that I had a sharp pen, and I could write very bad things about people. But this was quite a long time ago, but I still have that with me, and I still hear that. And coming to other countries, it's like a blank sheet. Is that how you say it? A blank sheet. And I really like it. But now when you ask the question and I answer like this, now everyone's listening is going to have that picture of me being controversial and mean. So I don't think that I will.
Controversial and mean is not necessarily a bad thing in Holland.
I know, but no, it's true. But what I want to do now is to focus on the writing. You know that it's not very easy to be able to make so much money of your writing that you can live on it. But now with this international thing, I think that for the first time I can. So I can now dismantle other things. For example, I'm going to cancel the podcast next year and just focus on the books.
That's a big step. After how many years have you been doing the podcast with Sigge?
9 years. So it's
9 years.
The 10 years anniversary. For the next year.
Well, and I still have 8 years to go, so I'm fine.
Are you on your second year?
Second year, just yeah.
And
Yeah.
And your podcast is still the biggest one.
Yeah. Well, we're now producing, like your wife Amanda. We're producing more podcasts, so we're actually competing against ourselves with the other productions. But so far, we're still the biggest. Yeah. But I actually hope not to be the biggest in a couple of years, because I feel like me and my friend we're not mainstream. We shouldn't be mainstream. There should be bigger podcasts, and we're so underdeveloped when it comes to podcasts. So I expect us to not be the biggest in 1 year, and that would be a good thing, because that means the podcast market in Holland is becoming more mature.
How many podcasts do you produce in your company?
17 right now.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, we're going really fast. But we're here not to talk about me. Let's go to the book, because it's a very, very interesting book. I already told that it's your first novel. It's also the first fiction book you've been writing, because all the other ones were autobiographical.
Yes.
Why did you choose to go fiction this time?
I remember when I wrote this book about my mother, and I mean, my mother was an alcoholic, and it was the story of being of growing up with an alcoholic mother. And I remember when I was finishing it, and I asked Sigge, my partner, my podcast partner, to read it, and then he came back to me and said, "This is a good story. I love it, but I have only one thing that I would like it to change." And I said, "What's that?" And then he said, "Well, after 70% of the book, your mother is going into rehab, and then she became sober. I would love her. I would love it if she could start to drink again after four weeks." And I said, "Well, I can't do that, because it didn't happen.
True.
It's not true." And then he said, "No, but I mean, story-wise, that would be the best thing for you to do." And then I said, "Well, I could not do that." But I was very fascinated by that thing that there are so many things to take in the process when you write about people who have lived, and when you try to write stories that has happened in real life, and you cannot mixture with it. And I am obsessed with storytelling, and I wanted to be free. I wanted to really be able to write whatever I wanted. But still, I mean, this book is about three brothers, and I have two brothers growing up in this country house by a lake in the middle of the forest, which I did. We have that kind of house. So in many ways, it is a story about me and my brothers, but I could be totally free, So that's why I wanted to go fiction.
Yeah, and I mean, you just explained it is actually a book about your own family. The people, the places, they all exist. Is it only the events that are fictional?
No, the events is not fictional either. I mean, some are, but some are not. I mean, the book, the frame of the book, it's about three brothers. Their mother dies, and the day before the funeral, they find a note from their dead mother in the mother's apartment. and they sit down on the bed and they read that note, and that note throws them away in a strange direction. And that happened in real life as well. The day before our mother died, we gathered in her apartment and we found a note, and we read that, and it was like the strangest thing I've ever experienced, to sit there with my two brothers. And I remember we sat on her bed, and I looked down at the note, and I saw our socks, and it was like it was really like that we were not adults, we were kids, and after a couple of years, I thought that could be a good frame for a story. So I used that, and I use a lot of things that happened in real life. The book starts with a swimming competition that actually happened in that way when I was a boy. So many things are directly taken from my childhood.
Yeah, actually the book has two bigger storylines. One follows you, the brothers, after your mother has died, and the other one is more from your youth, about the vacations at the lake. And the funny thing is that the book actually starts with what normally would be the ending. So I saw one of the critics here in the Netherlands wrote that you work like a detective to find out what really happened and how it influenced you, because you start today and work your way backwards. That's really like a policeman actually tries to solve every mystery. So how did you come up with that idea, and why did you choose that form?
Well, yes, that's true, because I tell the story backwards. I mean, it goes backwards. The first chapter is 12 at night, and then I go back to 10 o'clock p.m., right? Yeah. And then it's 8 p.m. and 6 p.m. And
it's like 24, the series 24, but then backwards. Yeah.
Yes. And I have a friend, he's a policeman, and he told me that when they interrogate the suspects, they have a technique. They often ask the suspect to tell them what happened backwards, because it's much harder to lie when you have to tell the story backwards. And I thought that was so intriguing. And then I thought, could you tell a story in a book backwards? And the gift here is that you get so much excitement telling it that way. The book starts with 3 grown-up men. They're soaking wet, they're bleeding, they're hugging each other and crying, and you have this urn there, and you don't know why they're crying, why are they bleeding, and then you go 2 hours back, and then they're fighting, and then you ask yourself, why are they fighting? And then you go 2 hours back again, and then you can see why they start to fight. So it's like you build like a mystery when you tell the story backwards. And I really like that, because then you can be a bit lower in energy when you tell the specific stories from the childhood. You don't need to get people killed or to have knives or guns coming from left and right. You could be a bit slower in the storytelling, but because you have that backward storyline, that makes it a bit exciting. So I was really thrilled when I came up with it. I also have to mention that, I mean, of course, I know that I'm not the first one in the universe that has told a story backwards. I remember I saw this Christopher Nolan movie, Memento. Did you see it?
Yeah.
It was. It's told in a similar way, because he has a short time memory loss. So it also go backwards. And I really like to to explore time in storytelling, and I do that a lot.
Did it actually also help you personally digging up old memories? Did going backward help you in finding other smaller storylines and clues, let's say, from your own past?
Yeah, I mean, it does. It did, and it does. I go to, and I went to a therapy called EMDR. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It has to do with the eye movement. So you go to this therapist. What's it called? That a therapist.
Therapist, yeah.
Yes, therapist. Yeah. And then you sit in a room with him, and then he takes the fingers and he does like this, and then you have to follow it. I mean, it sounds like it's a mambo jumbo, but it's very. I mean, it's
effective. It helped
yes,
you.
yes, and then when he's done that, he asked me to go backwards in time, and we start up with a memory from maybe when I was 10, and then he listened to it, and then he does like this again, and then we go backwards, and then I come to think of a memory when I'm 8, and then I go backwards to 6 and 5 and 4, and then I finally come to the first trauma, and that's the trauma that you have to solve, and you're solving it by just going there over and over again, week after week. And my first trauma was when I was 4, and I was in the car with my dad and my brothers, and we were fighting in the car. And my dad said, if you don't calm down, I will throw you out of the car. And then obviously we kept on fighting, and then he stopped the car, and it was like on a big field, almost like this, but it was in the middle of the winter, and he stopped the car, and he went out, and he opened the door, and he dragged me out, and I remember I was holding like I was trying to remain in the car, and then he was carrying me over his shoulder out on the field, maybe 10 meters, and then he threw me down, and then he went back to the car, and I was like, if I am left here, I'm going to die. So I ran back to the car, and I got in, and then he went out again, and he dragged me again, and he went out, and then he threw me one more time, and then I hurt myself in a way. I couldn't get up that time. So I just saw my father go back to the car. He shut the door, and then he left, and it was just me alone on that meadow, and it was like the moment when I realized that I have no value. You know, I'm worthless. I'm not how do you say it? I'm not a person who is worthy of love.
Yeah.
And that was terrible, and I didn't know that happened to me before I went into that therapy.
So you actually found that out when you were writing?
And no, that
writing.
I went to that therapy before, but the technique is the same. You go backwards.
Yeah. So you went to a therapist, but actually it sounds like writing to you, at least the books you're writing, the autobiographies, and now this novel is also some kind of therapy to you.
Yeah, but it's like a hobby therapy. A therapy, you could say.
It doesn't really help you.
No, but it helps me in one way. If I'm going to write down a memory from the childhood that it's particularly hard to go through.
Yeah.
When I come to think of that memory, I do what every other do. I push it away. I switch off the light and I just think of something else. But when writing about it, then you can't look away. You have to dig in. You have to really penetrate that memory. And when you do that, I think that when you're on the other side of it, you can handle it better. So in a way, I think that you're right, that it helped me.
Yeah. You write about your brothers. You have been writing about your parents, your grandparents. Is that, let's put it mildly, is that always appreciated by them?
No.
Did the writing affect your relationship, for example, with this book with your brothers?
Yes, I mean, generally speaking, I tend to lose contact with one or two family members for every book I write. But the one closest to me, my brothers, they're very important to me. So I didn't want to jeopardize that this time. So I sent them the manuscript before it was published, and it was a very emotional thing, because there were things there that I mean, for example, I have always thought that my bigger brother didn't help me out when I was a kid. It was like he always checked out from the dark moments. He just went away, and I always had a picture of that you're supposed to help the weak one. I mean, I wanted to help my baby brother, and I wanted my bigger brother to help me, but he always left, and I was so angry with him for so many decades after that. And I write about that in the book. And when he called me up after reading it, and I remember he was crying, and I was too. And of course, he has a completely different recollection, or I mean, he acted in the way he did because he had to, and he tried to explain that. And for the first time, we talked about that. So in a way, you could say that the book helped me, or helped us to come closer to each other. So I think that while the other books I wrote has made me drifted apart from people in the family, I think that this book it got us closer.
Yeah, but I'm also asking the question because from my own experience, people can have very different memories of the same event, and what can be traumatizing for you can completely not be traumatizing to someone else. Or, for example, the example you just gave with a father kicking you out of the car and letting you find your way home. It also happened to me, but I can't really say it traumatized me. So I can also understand that maybe your older brother witnessed the same events, but just took it differently.
Yeah, but for sure. But how could it not traumatize you? You're like ice cold.
No, but I think in hindsight, I don't know. It did not really traumatize me because I could find my way home. And yeah, I can imagine kids being horrible and you just want to get rid of them. Well, of course, I live in Holland, okay? Holland is a small country where you can find your way home. And Sweden is, of course, a bit colder. So I'm not. I think it's a bit of a slippery road to compare getting a car in Sweden from Holland. But let's not make it about me. But the point was that 2 or 3 brothers can have very different recollections of the same event. And I guess it's also very interesting to have that conversation with your brothers.
Yes, it's like 3 different worlds and 3 completely different stories. And I think that's going to be the same for, I mean, our kids. This is, by the way, Frances.
Hey.
Hey.
And that's Sander. And he's from, han kommer från Holland.
Nederländerna.
Nederländerna. Förlåt, you can't say Holland.
Du kan. You can say both, but Holland actually is like Stockholm's land. You know, it's just a province of. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're not from Holland, you may feel offended if you have very low tolerance.
Okay. All right. I remember when because when we met you in football, it was always Holland before, and now it's always.
Yeah. It's really hard for foreigners because we call ourselves Dutch. We're from the Netherlands, but we also cheer for Holland. So yeah, we can't really blame you for having no clue how to call us. No. But let's go back to the book. You've been writing so much about your family that I can imagine after this book especially, that now it's more or less done, the writing about your family, or are you going to write about your kids now?
No, well, the kids are always there, but because I think it's a very it's like a theme that there are kids everywhere here. It's like a theme.
How many do you have? 3,
no,
I count.
This is kom och säg hej då. Hej, det här är Edvard och Ville. They are the neighbors' kids.
Okay.
Yeah. Men
vi ska åka till Texas.
Okej, ja.
Jag vill bara säga då.
Puss, vi ses sen då. Ha det så kul. No, because I think it's very interesting, and I think it's a theme in my writing. How does the things that you experience in childhood affect you, and how can you and will you be able to stop it from happening again? And that's why I write about my kids too, because I see myself and I wonder how many of the dark things that happen to me am I passing along to them? And I needed to stop, and so I really explored that a lot. I mean, I do that in real life and also in my writing, and so that's why I write about them. But there are stories. I mean, there's one great story left to tell, maybe the greatest one, because and I can't even speak about it, but I can, but I don't know. I don't have the words for it. But my grandmother's mother, there's a story there because she was a very famous scientist, and she was a professor, and they named a street after her in Stockholm. Astrid Kleve was her name, so it's Astrid Kleves gata, and we were so proud in the family of her, of having that street and everything. And that street is close to the Karolinska Hospital in Stockholm, and then a delegation from an organization that fights against anti-Semitism was up on a visit to in Stockholm, and then they suddenly asked, "Why do you have that name on a street?" And they answered, "Why shouldn't we? She was a great scientist." Well, no, she was a devoted Nazi, and they didn't know. And then we started to look in the papers, and until her death in 1970, she said that she really loved Adolf Hitler, and she said that that the Holocaust never existed, and very, very controversial things. It would be nice to try to understand that story.
Yeah.
Sometime.
Yeah. It sounds like stories I already heard also here in Holland. Of course, this is the biggest taboo, having somebody on the wrong side of the war in your family. Yeah,
but I mean that I just don't understand that. I cannot be blamed for what happened so many generations ago, and also the story about the Swedish queen that her father maybe was a Nazi. I mean, and the queen and the king, they don't want to talk about it, and it's like a very big trauma. I think that they're ashamed of it. It's not the queen's fault.
No, of course not. No, but that's not how shame works. Shame is always irrational, and it can still happen to people who can't blame themselves.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I think it's so strange that it's this taboo. I don't feel it, and I want to break that taboo.
Yeah, that's a great topic. Yeah. Hey, of course, it's also interesting to touch on the differences between Swedish and Dutch. You're very open about your family traumas, the relationship between you and your parents and your brothers. Is that a Swedish thing to be so open and reflecting on your family relationships?
I don't think so. I really don't. Because we spoke earlier today, and you said that there's a difference between the Dutch people and the Swedish in that sense. Do you think that? Because you've been to Sweden for so many times. You can't say that the Swedes in general are transparent or very sad.
No. Of course, all generalizations are generalizations. So there's always a lot of bullshit in that. But I do think Swedish people, on average, have, let's say, a deeper layer than Dutch. I think the Dutch are very direct, very open, but on a superficial level. So we can call you a name. We can say, "Oh, Alex, I don't like your sweater," that level. But when somebody's really asking how you are and asking critical questions about you, the life choices you make, then we don't like to talk about that. So we're very open and direct, but on a superficial level. And I think that's also why we just stop thinking about those deeper layers and don't talk about so much and don't write about it so much. And maybe that's also an explanation why we're so attracted to Swedish literature and movies, because you do have this deeper layer. And based on my relationship with my girlfriend, it is kind of normal to talk about that deeper layer in Sweden.
Does she have a deeper layer than you?
I think so, definitely. Yeah, it's one of the things I learned from her. Absolutely. I'm a typical Dutchman, happy riding his bike and not thinking really. And she's definitely Nordic noir. She has deep emotions and deep feelings, and it took me some time to get used to that.
Yeah. Oh, but maybe we're a bit more truthful to ourselves. I don't know. We had this dinner yesterday. There's this farmer that lives here, and he owns every land here. He owns it. So you have to be very good friends with the man,
of course,
that owns everything around you, because if he hates you, then he can make you miserable. So so every time that we come here in June, I call him and I say I would like to invite you for dinner. And every year I give him my latest book to him and his wife, Claes and Ulla. And we sit there and we're very strict, and we're a bit afraid of him because he's so powerful. And at the end of the dinner,
it sounds like Sicily, not like Gotland.
and then at the end of the dinner, I asked him, because I gave him The Survivors last summer. So did you read The Survivors? And then he said, no. And then I said, okay. And then I asked his wife, did you read it? And then she said, yeah, I did. I didn't like it so much. It was so amusing.
Yeah.
Who said? I mean, who would say that?
Yeah.
And then it was silent, and then said, "Oh, it was a bit boring, I thought." And then
Okay, but they must have some Dutch heritage, because this is typically Dutch behavior. You know, we have no filter.
Yeah, no filter.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was great.
Yeah. Okay, so to finish our talk a bit.
But I really want you to come here to visit. If you're in Sweden, it's just across the country, and you can come here and see the island if you haven't been here.
I would love to, of course, yeah. No, I know that Lotta, my girlfriend, she's been wanting to go there, also to go to this place called Fabriken or something, which is supposed to be very nice.
I mean, that's a hotel called Fabriken Fyrillen. It's just a couple of kilometers that way.
Fyrillen, yeah.
Yes, it's fantastic.
So we definitely will come there. So you're a podcaster. You're gonna quit the podcast. You have a column in one of the biggest newspapers in Sweden.
Yes. Here is my daughter. Here's Charlie.
Hello.
Another one. Hi.
Hej.
Det är Sander. Han har en podcast. Han har en jättestor podcast i Holland. Nej, Nederlands. I Nederländerna.
Okay.
Samma. How many kids do you have?
3.
Okay. Oh, that's at least 3 more books.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry.
Good news.
Yeah, very good news.
Yeah. No, okay, but you said the focus will be writing, so we can expect many more books from you in the up and coming, because you will stop with this stupid podcasting and all this.
It's so superficial. You can go on. You can carry on.
Yeah. No,
I'm going.
I still. Yeah, but I also want my farmhouse on a local Dutch island, so I need to continue the podcast.
Good.
And Lotta wants one as well on the West Coast, so I need to continue. Yeah.
I understand.
Okay. Do we have any questions? I'm looking at my lovely assistant Petra. She's coming with the laptop with questions. Okay. Quite a lot, actually. Okay. Here we go. Yeah.
Have you tried snus yet?
No, I did. I did. I studied in Milan 1 year, and I had a lot of Swedish friends because, of course, compared to Italians, we are kind of similar. And they all forced me to take it, and I absolutely hated it. I like many things about Sweden, but that I can't say I like.
Yeah.
Okay. It's hard to read. How can I open this a bit? Okay, I'm Swedish, and I'm a big fan, and currently live in somewhere. How can I? Oh, here. No, that's one. Here. This works. Yeah. I am Swedish and a big fan, and I currently live in the Netherlands since 2 years with my Dutch girlfriend. She is very aware of your podcast, as I am of Zelfs podcast with Sander. How do you think your writing will be influenced internationally by quitting the podcast? And what does Sigge think about this?
No, but to be honest, I think that I usually use the podcast for trying storytelling ideas. So the idea of telling a story backwards, I tried that in the podcast. So I had this segment of 25 minutes of telling a story backwards. So and I also wrote a short story in the podcast that I took out from the podcast. I made it into a bigger story, and that is going to be a play on Dramaten, the Royal Theatre, next spring. So I think that I'm going to miss I'm going to miss having the podcast as a way of, being much more light-footed and try things and be more,
experimental.
Yes, experimental. But on the other side, on the other hand, it takes so much time. I write. I work with this manuscript for the podcast every week for maybe 8 to 10 hours, and then we record it for 4 hours, and then we edit it over and over again. So
that's such a big difference with us.
It is.
You said I was a much more serious journalist. Well, you're a much more serious podcaster because we just sit down and start babbling. Yeah.
I would love that, but we both sound stupid if we don't have this, if we're not prepared. But that means it takes us maybe half time to podcast, and it's so much time that goes away from the things that I really want to do, the books and everything. And again, we've done it for 9 years, so maybe it's time to move on.
Of course. Yeah. Next question. Tjena Alex, I'm curious to hear what you know and think about the Netherlands. Do you have any experience of the Netherlands or the Dutch? It's totally okay if you don't.
No, I was in the Netherlands because I wanted to try drugs, because I heard that it's very, very liberal with the drugs.
Altijd sama.
No, but that's
come for our art in beautiful places.
And then I went there for some drugs and had a great time with that. It was just a couple of weeks ago. No, it wasn't. It was when I was maybe 18 or something. But so I've been there for one time, and I can't say that I remember almost anything besides that. I thought that Amsterdam was a very beautiful city, but I have no other recollections of people I met, or I was so high.
I can understand why. Next question. Monique Rook, she's asking, is the writing worth losing people over? Or is the urge that big? So she's basically, this is a very serious question. You explained you lost some family members. Is it worth it?
Yeah, that's a big question. And I think sometimes that it's not. And I feel anguish, and I feel I have bad conscience. And I remember when I was in a church once, and I had this lecture about my book, about my mother. And after half an hour, an old lady stands up in a bench, and she interrupts me, and she says, "You have sold out your mother. How dare you?" And
how dare you? That's very Swedish.
Yeah. And then she left. And then that night I had some trouble sleeping, but I always end up in the same conclusion, that these are my stories, and I have the right to tell them.
Yeah, I agree. I very much agree. Hi, Alex. Do you have a special writing routine, like working on your book without staying with your family or start early whatsoever?
Yeah. When I'm starting a new book, I need to go away for a couple of days, but I don't want to be like, the typical culture man that, doesn't care about his family and just go away. So I try to minimize that, but I really need maybe 2 trips. Each trip is 3 or 4 days, and then I'm on it has gotten me to start, and then I can write the rest from home. But I have many ways of. I count the characters. You do that too, right, Sander? Because you're a newspaper journalist, and you have to. Yeah. And I do that too. So if I have a good day, I have 10,000 characters. And if I have a bad day, I have 3,000. And I count it over and over again to see if I'm making progress.
Yeah, yeah, and that's of course the legend that you have the keys to this famous restaurant in Stockholm where you always have your own table.
Yeah.
Is that also very right? And why on earth would you want to write in a full restaurant full of attractive people who are distracting you constantly?
No, I can't write there. I can just, but I can edit there. So I can write. I write somewhere else where I'm in peace. But then when I've done something, I really like to sit with people around me when I'm editing. That's not so hard to edit. It's just it's so joyful to edit. I love that. I really think it's hard to write, and I really think it's easy to edit. And so the writing is like a nightmare often, and I need to do that very much in peace. But the editing it's great to do at this restaurant.
I do recognize that a bit, to be honest.
Yeah.
Alex, Bren alla mina brev is my favorite book. The first read was the best reading experience of my life. I could not put it away and would stay awake until 3 a.m. because I just could not stop reading it. And it has also led me to start reading a lot more. Thank you for that. Question,
Thanks.
Completely unrelated. Which Ingmar Bergman movie is your favorite?
Have you seen any, Sander?
I'm afraid not. No.
Not one.
Sounds barbaric.
You should because you have a Swedish girlfriend and you want to understand her depths and her layers.
I do.
Then I could recommend you to see the most beautiful one is called Smultronstället. I don't know the English title. It's
Smultron. Oh, those are the small strawberries, right?
Yeah. And a Smultronställe is like a place, a favorite place of yours in life. This is my Smultronställe. So you can say that this place is my Smultronställe.
Oasis.
Yes, and it's about this old man that late in life gets an award for his work in the academic works, and he travels with car to accept that award, and he travels along his childhood, and he gets to places and he remembers things he've done wrong, and it's a fantastic movie. Could recommend everyone to see it.
Okay, I'm writing it down. I will watch it with Lotta the first time I see her.
Good.
Last question coming from Oscar Friberg. Which of the following is the most important for you when writing a story, and why? If you have to choose just one, I'm giving you 4 options. Building interesting characters, having a beautiful language, the surroundings and atmosphere, or the story itself?
Oh, that's hard. I have to choose one.
Yeah.
Well, if you can't build your characters, then you're dead anyway. And you could write a story with no storytelling. You could do that if you have great characters. Great characters doing nothing. I would love that much more than a great story with characters that are
flat.
Not, flat. So the characters is the most important thing.
Yeah,
I think.
We're at the end of our evening session. I want to thank you very much, Alex, for taking the time to have a chat with us.
You too, thank you.
I want to thank the Swedish Embassy, Petra, and all the viewers at home. I hope you've enjoyed it. And of course, I will show the book once more. It's sold in stores in Holland. Buy it because it's a really great book.
And thank you also for your blurb. You wrote about the book, and it's.
I did, yeah. I'm also a bit on the book.
Oh, you're there. Okay. Because I haven't seen it in real life, but it's there.
Yeah. I wrote. The Survivors is a family history that reminds you of your own family history. Schulman shows how the present and the past are connected and how memories can lead their own life. A very nice novel.
Oh, so you have also layers, Sander.
I do.
Oh, wow. Happy for you.
Yeah, I just don't talk about it because I'm Dutch. Okay, thanks so much. And
thanks so much.
I'd love to see you next time in Sweden, and have a great year with your kids. And
thanks so much. See you.
Hej då.